So I've just finished up Wuchang Fallen Feathers and it was alright. The game had a lot of good stuff going for it, but it also had some questionable things as well. I felt like in terms of gameplay it felt good, but got held back due to some other things. Now, all that aside, let's talk about the bosses. Today I'm going to be ranking all the bosses in the game, at least all the ones I've faced, from worst to best. Now obviously this is just my opinion, it's not like a definitive ranking or anything, so please calm down. Anyways, without wasting any of your time, let's get right into the video. At last place we have the Soulwood, a gimmick fight. Usually I don't hate these, but most of the time they're just not that fun, and the same can be said here for this thing. The point of this fight is to avoid his attacks and his summons, build up enough mana and shoot a projectile at him, preferably the fireballs. So this is more of a waiting game than an actual fight. I appreciate the devs for wanting to switch things up a bit, but there are definitely more fun ways to make a gimmick fight. This felt a bit basic and honestly boring at times, but I do give them credit for not making it overly difficult because that would have made me hate it. But yeah, it's just a below average fight and there's nothing really going on. Next up we have the monstrous toddler. It seems like people either really love this boss or absolutely hate it. I happen to fall in the latter. Now don't get me wrong, the fight itself isn't outright terrible, it's just that big enemies, especially in this game, has some weird hitboxes, so I usually don't like fighting them. It's almost like they can reach behind their ass with 80% of their attacks, and the tracking doesn't make this any better. This guy basically does the same shit, but what's weird is that its attacks isn't too hard to follow and counter. What makes it hard is the obnoxiously large health pool. Seriously, this fight will test your patience. Apparently magic is the best way to deal damage to it, but I was not about to reset all my skill points into a different build just for one boss. So instead I decided to fight it head on with my longsword melee build, and man, this fight on my final attempt took me 7 minutes. That doesn't seem too long in general, but for a boss fight, that's lengthy. I could have had kids by then. Anyway, despite his attacks being somewhat easily telegraphed, they do have wide sweeping reach, so most of the time you'll get chip damage due to positioning. Despite the low ranking, I do like the arena, and it seemed like the story behind this boss is good too. I don't know, I didn't really pay attention to that. But everything else I didn't really like. It's too long, he's super relentless with almost zero downtime, he moves around a lot, and yeah, that's basically why I didn't like the fight. It's not all that bad, but it definitely feels drawn out and annoying. Feathered Priest. What's weird is that this guy was my first roadblock in the game, which is crazy now that I think about it because he's not really hard. It's just that at the time, Wuchang's combat just hadn't clicked with me, and I was still experimenting around with different weapons, but he whooped my ass so bad that I decided not to play the game for a whole week. Then I came back with the longsword and I had a way easier time. The main issue that I had with him, and it honestly goes for most of the bosses in this game, is that he was killing me in 2 or 3 hits. And since my stamina is so low at the point in the game, it felt like as soon as I dodge an attack, my bar is almost gone. But I think the real issue was the corruption attacks. As soon as one of those attacks hit, that was it. But again, looking back, it's embarrassing that I died to him that many times, because his moveset is super simple, especially compared to the mid to late game bosses. It's just that the corruption build-up really threw me off. Now in terms of enjoyment, I didn't really find him fun. Even if I didn't die to him that much, I still think he's a bit mid or below that. His design is mediocre and his moveset isn't anything to write home about. He's just boring and his arena is just the loft of a building, so not even that stands out. So yeah, Feathered Priest is definitely not one of my favorite bosses. Next up we have the final boss of the game, Feathery Ambition. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the other part of the name out of respect. Some of y'all might be wondering why I placed it this low since, you know, it's the final boss and, you know, it's spectacle or whatever. So let me just get this out the way. In terms of presentation and design, it's definitely a cool fight. Even though I think Wuchang's design shines best in its more humanoid looking bosses, but again, this dude looked decent. Now the fight itself is just not that fun to me, and it's the same issue with a lot of the other bosses. He has zero downtime. Like, it's almost laughable on how little time he gives you to attack him, without you having to worry about getting hit. He also runs away from you a lot too, but that's not the only part. His hitbox is wide and some of his attacks reach really far, especially when he starts using his wings. But he doesn't just stop there, he does a crazy amount of damage. And I know that I had my madness very high, but sometimes one of his basic attacks was able to take out 60% of my health in just one hit. That's crazy. He also has a crazy amount of health too, so you're going to be fighting him for a while. All of this added up kind of made me not enjoy this fight, which is a shame because I think the final boss of any game can be difficult but in a fun and fair way. And while I wouldn't say that this guy's outright unfair, he's definitely not that fun to me. Great Centipede. Another boss with a crazy hitbox. I swear sometimes I'll stand far away from its side but its attacks will still reach me even if it's attacking in the other direction. Great Centipede is a somewhat decent fight in terms of visuals and moveset, and yes, I said moveset, though some of it can be really annoying to deal with, mostly the one where it bursts out onto the ground. It's a pretty fair fight for the most part. Shit, you even have some pillars in the arena that can stun him anytime it attacks them. It also doesn't have a crazy amount of health. Again, the only annoying part of the fight is the ground attack and the occasional hitbox jank. Now in terms of visual design, it's great. I mean, the design of the centipede itself looks amazing and the yin yang attack looks beautiful. But apart from that, I still didn't enjoy this fight all that much. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just, I don't know, okay? I don't really know what else to say. At number 15, we have Gluttonous Monstrosity. This is a boss that I missed, so I had to fight it pretty late in the game. So I was way too overpowered for it. Now, based on how the fight went, despite me killing it in less than a minute, I could tell that it would probably give me a way harder time if I fought it earlier on. But I'm not ranking the bosses based on difficulty, but more so based on moveset and design. I'm placing it here since it's your typical monster slash beast type boss, but again, I really like the horror-esque look it has. Here we have the Palace Maids, both of them. These are some of the easiest fights in the game and felt more like mini bosses rather than super important ones. But despite how basic and easy they felt, they were pretty fun to fight for the most part. I do like how weird and dance-like their moveset felt, but to be honest, I can't rank them any higher because their moveset, despite being somewhat stylish, is a bit shallow and they're super easy, so yeah. At this spot, we have the Mistress of the Night. At first, I genuinely thought I would hate this fight, mostly because she's a mage type boss, which means that she's gonna evade most of your attacks, and you're gonna spend half the time trying to keep up with her. And that was the case on my first 2 or 3 attempts, until I realized that you can basically backstab her until she dies. And guess what? That's exactly what I did. Sure, this sounds a bit cheesy, but I think it's fair since all she does is spam different spells at you, giving you little to no breathing room. Now the fight itself didn't really, well, wow me or anything. I just thought it was decent. I don't know. Usually I like weird bosses like this, but I think the combat flow wasn't clicking for me. Maybe that's why I didn't place her any higher. But overall, not a bad boss by any means. And at this spot we have Vermilion Feather Hung Lan. Okay, so this might be another controversial placement since I'm assuming that most people love this fight and think it's the best in the game, but for me I just can't see how. I thought Phase 1 was decent, but by the time Phase 2 comes around, she just feels so overtuned. You can tell the devs wanted their own Millennia boss, and it's definitely her. Remember when I said that most of the late game bosses barely give you any time to breathe? She takes that statement and embrace it. I'm telling you, if you so much as look away from her for 0.5 seconds, you're most likely gonna be dead by the time you look back on the screen because she just keeps on attacking and attacking. What's worse is that she has insane reach and some of her moves are very hard to read. She sometimes mixes some of her projectile sword slashes with her regular combos, which makes it insanely hard to see it coming. What's also crazy is that her tracking is insane. I swear, you can see an attack coming and dodge the first initial hit, go behind her, and this bitch will still manage to hit you with her follow-up. At this point, I was just not having fun. I know that you can stun her with charged heavies to the back, but good luck doing that in Phase 2 because she's not going to be staying still at all. But the icing on top is her super high damage output. She can kill you in 3 hits with only her regular sword attacks. With her other magic or projectile based ones, it's usually 2. This is a fight that bums me out a lot because she has the design and the presentation and her moveset is a spectacle, but what holds her back is how overtuned she is. When I finally beat her, I didn't feel happy or anything because she's just an exhausting boss fight. South General. Okay, honestly, I really like this fight, especially when it comes on to his moveset. The only attack I genuinely hated is when he pull out the Glock like Ishin. The reason why I hate this move is because there's barely any weight at all. Or maybe it's just that the projectiles are insanely fast or probably go based off the trigger instead of the bullets being traveled. And also if you position yourself in front of him past the barrel, you'll still get hit, which is really stupid. But apart from that, I did enjoy his moveset a lot. Kinda wish he stayed still a bit more, but he wasn't too bad. In terms of everything else, his design is a bit basic and the arena is just in someone's backyard, but the moveset itself really elevates this fight. So yeah, that's why I placed him here because it's a fun fight. At number 10 we have Master Raider. Master Raider is like the first actual real boss of the game and to be honest, it was a good fight. His moveset was tricky, at first due to his unorthodox movement, but despite that, even if you panic dodge, you'll still evade most of his attacks. Speaking of attacks, I do like his phase transition where he burns the grass in the whole arena and his weapon ignites with flames. He's simple but a great boss, especially for the early game. What I find weird about the Master Raider, sounds like I'm saying masturbator, after watching the footage again, is how simple and easy his moveset is to read compared to most of the other bosses in the game. And I get that he's an early game boss, but even guys like Feathered Priest felt the same way. Most of the early game bosses felt almost completely different from the mid to late game ones, and it starts with a certain commander, who I'm actually going to talk about next. But it seemed like the bosses in the early game were there to challenge you, while the mid to late game ones were there to annoy and frustrate you. Anyways, I'm yapping too much, and let's move on to the next boss. At this spot we have Commander Hung Lan. She's the very first actual roadblock in the game, not just for me but for most players. She's really hard, like insanely hard. Not as hard as her other version, but still crazy difficult, especially for an early game boss. And honestly, that's what I think made her challenging, because at this point in the game, I haven't fought a boss on the same level as her. Most of my skills weren't unlocked as yet, and again, back to the bosses, most of them were more slower paced and seemed to complement the combat of Wuchang really well. Hung Lan on the other hand is super fast, does a crazy amount of damage. I mean, she can literally kill you in 2 to 3 hits. She's relentless and loves to dodge your attacks, so you're only gonna get like one good hit on her with the longsword, for example. Most of the time I realized that if I found an opening, I had to play it safe and hit her once, as attacking her with 2 or more attacks can lead her to interrupting those set attacks, killing you with one of her combos. But after learning the first phase and having patience and parrying practice, it became a bit more fun, to the point where I could risk attacking with 2 hits due to me knowing what move she will follow up with next. Now the second phase is a whole new beast. Here she has projectile slashes and a lot of flurry attacks. In this phase she has little to no downtime, and the best and only way I could do this part is to use the Spike Spear spell, or whatever it's called. Basically I dodged most of her attacks, built some Skyborn Might, and used it every time it was full. Rinse and repeat, and that's how I defeated her. At the end of the day, Hung Lan, while challenging, was somewhat fun to me, especially the first phase, but I do kinda hate how she's just the blueprint for most of the bosses going forward. And number 8 we have the Ming General. I remember this dude beating my ass pre-patch, not because he was insanely difficult or anything, it was mostly because of the shitty healing animation and the slow get up time. So it felt like any mistake I made was the end of the fight. I stopped playing for a week because of work and came back after patch 1.5, and man, he was so much better and more enjoyable. Even though I think that his second phase can be a bit annoying due to his constant dodging and the Ice Storm move, that move isn't even bad in terms of damage or anything. It's just that he keeps spamming it, so it makes the fight feels drawn out. But apart from that, I did enjoy the fight a lot. But it was kinda weird seeing him standing in the boss room after being defeated. I thought it was bugged out, but it turns out it's intended. At number 7 we have the Nightmare Demon. Throughout the whole game, if you die too many times, you have to face the demon. And she usually has a different moveset each time and has a variety of spell based attacks as well. She hits pretty hard but has a low health pool. This is basically her, but with just a boss health pool instead. Here she uses all the weapon types like the longsword, axe, dual blades, and single blade. In terms of moveset, she's pretty much the same as the ones we've been fighting throughout the whole game. The only thing that makes her difficult though is her damage output, as a couple hits from her can wipe out your health. But still though, she's somewhat fun, mostly because I've fought her so many times before to the point where I understand her moveset. Here's a boss fight that I thought I would hate, but it turns out I actually kind of like it. Fierce Tiger and Sovereign. That's weird. This is the second time I fought an oversized tiger in a large pool of blood in a Chinese setting within a game. Anyways, the reason why I initially hated this fight was mostly due to the insane damage output of the tiger. One of its attacks can literally wipe out 70% of your health, especially the charge and the lightning based ones. But you will soon realize that its moveset is somewhat easy to read, so it's all a matter of not getting hit in the first phase. The second phase remains the same but a bit different at the same time due to someone mounting the tiger and casting different lightning based spells. Some of these spells are tricky to dodge, especially when they start hopping in the air and shooting them at you. But what I realized is that if you stay close to the side of the tiger, dodging most of the hits is going to be a bit easier since the Sovereign Spear can't reach you, and the tiger's moveset being almost the same as the first phase. This boss is great in terms of moveset design and spectacle. The only thing holding it back again is the crazy damage output of the boss, but apart from that, it's a fun fight, at least to me. At number 5 we have General of the North. For an optional boss of the region, this guy really surprised me on how fun he was. It felt like the game dialed the insane speed and relentlessness of the boss fights down a bit and created an absolute banger with him. What makes the General of the North fun is how fair yet challenging he felt. His attacks, while heavy hitting, doesn't feel overtuned nor overbearing. When I died to him, which was admittedly a lot, it didn't feel like it was because he was unfair or anything. Most of the times it was something outside of the boss fight itself, like, the slow healing or the get up time. This was pre-patch, by the way. The only thing that can feel odd is his hitbox when he swings his sword around. But yeah, apart from that, the General of the North is an amazing fight that, to me, even stood out more than the Ming General. The Reborn / Dragon Emperor. This guy is basically Moon Presence on crack. The first phase is pretty much similar to the Fierce Tiger with some additional or modified attacks, but the second phase feels completely different from what we've seen. His attacks, while a lot, feel super fair and easily telegraphed. Honestly, there's not really anything that I hate about this fight. It's pretty good for the most part. His design is pretty great as well. There's not really much I have to say, it's just a good boss. That's it. Bull Mages. For a spellcaster mage boss, she's surprisingly fun, even though she has some really annoying attacks like the corpse grab. Her boss fight kinda reminds me of the dark elf girl from Kazan, except surprisingly this one is way less annoying. She even has the same bubble shield. I think what made me love this fight a lot is its visuals. The bright red grassy open area, the visuals of her spells, especially when she summons the large golden blade. It's just a spectacle, and her moveset, despite having some annoying attacks here and there, is pretty fun and fair for the most part. At second place we have Fang Ling. This might seem like a strange pick to be number 2, but I genuinely like this fight. Now I do prefer phase 1 over phase 2, but phase 2 is surprisingly not that bad, especially when you apply fire to your weapon. Now let's start with phase 1. In this phase she's your typical swordsman type of boss. Rapid, high damaging, fast paced attacks, and a lot of agility. Some of these set attacks are parryable, which will give you a chance to get some free hits in. Something that will really mess you up in this phase is her poise break. When this is inflicted, you take a chunk of damage. It's kinda hard to tell which attacks cause this, but it seems like mostly the ones coming from her black arm. Phase 1 is just a fun duel between swordsmen. Now phase 2, she turns into this monster, and while I do prefer phase 1, I'm saying phases a lot. This was still fun for the most part, especially considering that she doesn't feel overbearing. Her damage output, for example, is pretty forgiving, especially compared to, the first phase or some of the previous bosses. And despite her having a separate health pool, with fire she goes down pretty easily. The attacks in this phase is also a lot easier to dodge. You can pretty much stay right next to her and avoid most of the attacks. Again, I do prefer the first phase, and it's kind of the main reason why this fight ranks so high, but overall this boss fight was really great. And at the number 1 spot we have the Bow Sorcerer. She was the fight that I was anticipating the most. Before I speak about the fight though, let's talk about how beautiful the Avian Forest is. The areas in this game didn't really look all that interesting to me, but this part really stood out. It looks like Pandora from Avatar, just a little bit. Anyway, Bow Sorcerer's fight is fantastic. Her moveset is fun, but what I really like the most is the visuals. The arena looks gorgeous, this large open pool of water in the middle of the forest, the design of the sorcerer herself, and how beautiful some of her attacks look. While there are definitely more crazier fights in terms of spectacle, I do like the simple yet beautiful style they were going for with this one. Now visuals aside, going into this fight, I knew it would be a challenge, and the challenge it was because she ragdolled me for a good minute. But hey, at least it was really fun this time. At first she may seem fast and overwhelming, but as time goes by, you get used to the timing of her attacks and see the few openings she has. What I realized is that despite the second phase starting off with her water spouts and her occasional sword slash projectiles, it's not really that much different from the first. Over time it became fun dodging and countering most of her attacks. The only complaint I have is that I wish she had just a little bit more downtime between her combos, but that's about it. Overall, she's a fantastic boss fight and probably the only boss I would go out my way to refight in this game. Now, there were 2 bosses I missed in the game, one being the Obsession Demon and the Eternal Glory. To be honest, I didn't really care to fight the Obsession Demon that much. I mean, it looks like the other one, like the Nightmare Demon, so who cares? But I was pissed off when I found out that I locked myself out of the Eternal Glory fight. Dude looks like Ishin's grandfather. This fight looks really dope and the arena might be the best looking in the game, but man, why the hell did it have to be locked behind a missable quest line? And I don't feel like playing the whole game again just to fight this guy. Okay, I have to talk about this, and it's about the boss quality in this game. If I'm being honest, the visuals and presentation of the bosses were fantastic. Again, the Bow Sorcerer, Eternal Glory, and a couple others really stood out and are on par with some of the top tier Souls-like bosses. But there is still a problem, and it might just be a skill issue, but I just need to talk about it. As you can tell in this video, I didn't really enjoy a lot of the bosses the game had apart from a few, and even those can feel exhausting at times, especially the late game ones. The one thing that bothered me was how insanely aggressive they were. It's like the game wanted the bosses to be like Kazan or Sekiro without having the consistent parry slash deflection mechanic. And yes, there is a parry in the game for multiple weapons, but it's not the same as Sekiro or Kazan's. You can only usually parry one or two attacks out of the boss's entire moveset. Again, this wouldn't be an issue if the bosses weren't insanely fast or aggressive. But what about the perfect dodge mechanic, you might ask? Yes, it does feel good against most enemies, but some bosses are genuinely just hard to dodge. Like Vermilion Feathers Hung Lang, who can mix up different attacks catching you off guard, and even if you think you dodged that follow-up attack perfectly, you'll still get hit by it. I know it sounds like I'm complaining, and I kinda am, but the bosses, at least the mid to late game ones, didn't feel like they complemented the combat style of the game really well. It's like they're built for a hack and slash game, but your character is still stuck in a Souls-like. It's basically the pre-patch Promised Consort thing again. I don't know why devs think that making a boss move 3 times faster than the player, giving them a shit ton of combos and little opening, is peak game design. Also, what I find really weird is that the game seems to want you to use combos of your own, switching between different weapons and using weapon combo skills. But the bosses usually punishes you if you dare to do more than 2 consecutive hits on them. So what's the point? I genuinely feel like the game would be better if it straight up had that Sekiro slash Kazan style of deflections where it's stamina based and you can do it for most attacks. It would probably feel more smooth and less bullshit. Now the bosses being super fast and having a lot of combos is one thing, but giving them a shit ton of health and a crazy amount of damage output can make them feel overtuned and exhausting to fight. Usually most times I defeat a boss in these type of games, I'm usually satisfied or happy, but with Wuchang I just felt exhausted. No satisfaction or nothing, just pure exhaustion. Again, apart from a few boss fights, because there were some good ones here and there. And look, I know I'm probably the only person with this issue because I do see a lot of praises for its boss fights and boss lineup, but I just had to get that off my chest. So yeah, that's it for the ranking. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, before I end this, don't take this as me hating Wuchang. It's actually quite the opposite. I think the game was alright for the most part. It did its job. It's a serviceable Souls-like, and it has a lot of people really rooting for it. And honestly, I want the game to sell well enough so that the devs can make a sequel for it or something. It's just that some of the bosses I didn't really enjoy that much, or majority of the bosses. I wouldn't say majority, I would say maybe like 40% I enjoyed, maybe 60 or even less than that, 50% I didn't enjoy. So again, I don't think the game is bad. Not because I'm talking about the bosses doesn't mean that I'm saying that the game is bad. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys again enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then leave a like. If you don't, then leave a comment on why you hate it, even though I probably know why. But yeah, that's about it.